When you combine proper shooting fundamentals with the right gear, not only is long-range precision rifle that much easier, it's just so fun.
Exactly what goes on.
Recently, the Hero Down shootout was hosted by Hero Down Foundation at Ridgeline Defense in Dalton, New Hampshire. And among the competitors, I started to see a little bit of a trend of equipment being used, and the ones that were successful in competing were using a certain baseline of must-have gear in order to succeed at long-range precision rifle. The unsuccessful shooters either weren't using that equipment or their equipment was a little bit less quality or worse quality, so they weren't as successful at those stages or in the overall competition. While I was in the military, I didn't really concern myself with any of this. I was really concerned about CQB and close quarters engagements. So getting out and learning all of this was brand new to me. I had no idea where to begin, no idea what to buy. And over the last year or two, I've slowly started to figure out what are the bare essentials that I need in order to set up my long-range precision rifle setup and accomplish the task effectively. So today, I'm going to talk to you guys about the bare essentials you need for long-range precision rifle. Before I get too deep into that, I do want to add the caveat that none of this equipment that I'm going to talk about today is going to do their job for you. It's not like once you buy this, you're suddenly going to be hitting targets out at 500, 600, 700 yards. You have to have the knowledge, skills, and abilities prior to using this equipment in order to be effective. And especially when it comes to long range, it's super key to master the basics because your mistakes are only going to be amplified the further out you're shooting. So in order to be effective at long range precision shooting, you're going to need to sign up for some classes, start understanding how ballistics and shooting fundamentals work, really start to get practice with that, and then go out and buy all the fancy enablers that you're going to see in this video. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. There are no supporters for this video, but you, the viewer, are what keeps me going. So please make sure you like, comment, and share. Just pass this video around and really help build my channel. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Starting with a category that I think is completely non-negotiable, and that's going to be your rifle, optic, and your ammo selection. Those go without saying with shooting rifle at all. You're going to need a rifle, you're going to need a way to aim it, and then you're going to need ammo to shoot. But in particular, I believe that the rifle you select for long-range precision, you're going to need at least sub 2 and preferably even sub 1 MOA rifle. I think that's kind of non-negotiable because even though you could do everything right at distance, if your rifle is only sub 3 or 4 MOA, you're going to get really frustrated because you're not going to be able to hit what you're aiming at. So getting a rifle that's capable of sub MOA for me is where I start. And right now I'm using the Ridgeline LPR. Upper receiver has a proof barrel inside of it, and I put it on a LMT lower. This setup is absolutely incredible for me. It is a tack driver. The proof barrel and the way that this semi-monolithic upper receiver is designed by Ridgeline is just second to none. The semi-monolithic upper receiver allows for completely negligible barrel deflection. So when I'm using a bipod or I'm putting this on a barrier, if I really lean into it and I load that bipod or load that barrier, I'm not gonna get any movement of my barrel, which means that my impact, even at distance, is not gonna move, or if it does move, it's so negligible that I don't even notice it. So for me, Ridgeline LPR, absolute way to go. Second, ammo. So I like two different types of ammo. Right now I'm using either the PMC X-Tac 55 grain, it's just cheaper stuff, but I find it through the Ridgeline to be super consistent. And then I'm also using the AAC 77 grain OTMs, also very consistent for me through this rifle, but just a little more expensive. And For my budget and my price point, these work out just fine. I know they're not the best ammo out there. There are definitely much more capable, especially in the heavier grain weights. But for what I need it for, those ammo selections work extremely well, and really what you need is consistent ammo. So whatever your rifle likes, I can't tell you what ammo your rifle is gonna like best. You're gonna need to test a couple different loads, whether that's store-bought, hand load, or particular specialized rounds that you like. Make sure you're grouping them at your zero distance and figuring out which one provides you the most consistent groups and also probably the best standard deviations. The AC doesn't really have good SDs. That's probably my biggest complaint. But as far as the group size goes, they are consistently sub MOA, some of them even 0.6, 0.7 MOA, which is absolutely incredible. Same thing with a PMC, but sometimes I'd say 1 in every 10, 15 rounds kind of goes off to the side. So not quite as consistent as I'd like it, but for a training round, it does just fine. Lastly, you're gonna need a capable optic. And for this conversation specifically, a simple red dot just by itself is just not gonna cut it. You're gonna need at least some sort of BDC reticle or drop indicator along with magnification, not only to see your target, but also to make corrections. See the splash, see the effect on target, and make corrections at distance. That's gonna be absolutely key. So what I would recommend is you're either gonna be needing a red dot like an EOTech EXPS 3-2. It has the drops, or even the 3-4 has even more drops. And then I would say at least a 3X, preferably even a 5X magnification. So that's like the bare minimum that I'm talking for long distance precision rifle. But preferably I would use MPVOs. For my selection, I'm gonna go with a Leupold Mark V 3.6 to 18. This is the PR2 mill-based reticle. And what I like about that reticle is it's super, super clean, crisp lines that are just out of the way, but still tell you where your misses are at so you can make corrections. And mill-based is just easier to understand. I think for when people are starting out, they tend to think, oh, MOA makes more sense because it's based on inches, but mill-based reticle is a lot simpler to do math, especially when you have a spotter. I typically just go with that, and this optic has been absolutely incredible for me. It's super crisp. I love the elevation dials. Windage dials, not so much, but you're not gonna be dialing wind all that much. So everything about this Mark V is just fantastic. And I have it on a Griffin SPRM mount at 1.45 height above rail. Without those, this conversation is not even really worth having because you're not gonna be able to hit much of what you're aiming at. So this is where to start if you don't already have that sorted out. Long range precision is gonna be pretty difficult. That's not to say you can't get it done with just a rifle. I've shot out to 500 with a 11.5 inch red dot, just an EOTech and a 3X magnifier, and I was able to hit steel at 500 yards. Consistently? No, but I did it. So that's my recommendation. Start there, and then let's get on to the need to have bare essential equipment past your non-negotiables. So in my opinion, the first piece of equipment you should get for long-range precision rifle, hands down, is a good quality shooting bag. This one I have here is the Armageddon Gear Game Changer, and this is in the standard fill. What shooting bags allow you to do is conform your rifle to irregularly shaped barriers, or it gives you a place to rest your stock when you're in the prone position. And this is going to allow your shooting positions to be extremely stable, durable, and repeatable. So whether you're using this on a barrier or a prop or something like that, and you have it mounted onto that railing or onto that rock, you can rest your rifle by the handguard right onto the shooting bag, and it's gonna prevent any extraneous muscle movement, breathing, or even blood flow in extreme long-range precision cases from affecting where your rifle is pointing, because this is providing you that stability that you need. Especially when you have it underneath the stock, the rifle will just be stable on its own. So that's first and foremost, is that it provides extreme stability, but it also gives you a very durable shooting position. What I mean by that is it's going to absorb a lot of that recoil and really allow you to load the rifle into the barrier or into the prop that you're using, or it's going to allow you to sink that stock nice and deep into the bag and just be very resistant to input. This gun does shoot extremely light because of the Voltor A5 buffer system that I have, but the bag makes it so that I can just constantly look down the optic and see my effect on target without having to adjust my position and make any changes to my prone or my kneeling or my standing depending on what I'm shooting. Lastly, for repeatability, it really gives me a routine on how exactly do I set up my rifle on that barrier or in the prone position. I can kind of hold my bag prior to the drill or prior to the match, whatever I'm shooting, in a certain way so that it makes it super easy and super quick to just throw it up onto a barrier and it lands in the way that I want it. And then I'm just gonna slap my handguard right on top of that flat surface that I've now created. Even if it's a rock or something super weird shaped, this is gonna land and fill in all of those weird cracks and crevices to give me a nice, stable, and supportive shooting platform. Also, when I'm dropping down in the prone, I can kind of hold this bag in such a way where I want it to land on the ground, either upright or down on its side or whatever I need. And then I just drop down to the prone as I'm facing my target. And it's a very repeatable routine. And when it comes down to it, precision really is just repeatability and consistency. So if you're getting accurate hits and you can repeat that process consistently, that is inherently precision shooting of your rifle. So the bag allows you to do those things. What I have here is a basic Cabela's kind of Bass Pro Shop shooting bag, and you can kind of feel the beads in there are much larger and they don't move around and conform to whatever I want them to, just like this one does. I can squish this bag and make it be whatever position I want it to be in order to place my rifle on that bag. Whereas this one, it's in the shape that it's in and I can't really change it all that much. So as far as a support goes, it's fine. It does support my rifle, but it doesn't bend and move like I want it to. And if I have to make very, very minute adjustments, especially if it's under my stock, under my armpit, I can't get this bag to do that. So you definitely want a bag that can move in the way that you need it to. And so far, I've really only found Armageddon Gear's Game Changer to do that really well. I have seen people use some Flatline Fiberco shooting bags that work pretty well, or really just a sock full of sand, but you really can't beat high quality gear, especially when you need to rely on it. So that's what I go with. All right, so next up in line after a good quality shooting bag is definitely going to be a bipod. The reason why I didn't put a bipod in front of the shooting bag in my list is because you can kind of achieve this same form of stability with a good quality shooting bag. I don't technically need a bipod. If I just have this underneath my handguard, it kind of accomplishes the same thing. It's not as sturdy and it's not as consistent, but it kind of can do what that tool does. However, in combination, in the prone position, I would highly recommend your next purchase be a bipod, especially with adjustable cant. So if you're gonna be using a shooting bag underneath your stock, you're gonna need something up front to support the front end of your rifle. The bipod I'm using is gonna be the Harris SLM. I like the LM, which is the 9 to 13 inch, because it gives me a little bit more adjustable height. I can extend this out to 13 inches and really get some high angle shooting even from the prone position. Whether that's high angle up or high angle down, this allows me to kind of do anything that precision rifle is going to require of me. So highly recommend Harris for their bipods. They're very high quality, very durable. There's a bunch of different models out there, so I would do your research on what exactly it is that you need. In general, I would recommend you get a bipod that has adjustable cant. Some people like the lateral left and right swivel as well. I don't really find a use for that. I would rather just adjust my natural point of aim, my entire body, to orient myself towards my next target rather than just swiveling. Yes, it is faster, but it just feels so unnatural to just move only my upper body and my legs stay behind me in the same position. So I don't really like the swiveling, but the adjustable cant is a must for me. Cant is going to shift your point of impact left or right depending on which way you're tilting your rifle. The rule of thumb for cant is that for every degree left or right that you tilt your rifle, your point of impact is going to shift by about 0.1 mils for every 100 yards of distance. So for example, if I'm shooting at 500 yards and I'm canted by about a degree to the right, I'm gonna see roughly 0.5 mils of point of impact shift on my rounds. And that's super important to know that and then figure out how to get your rifle the most level possible. And you're gonna do that by having a bipod with adjustable cant, a stable platform like the shooting bag, and then a bubble level or some sort of level indicator to let you know where perfect horizontal is. So the bubble levels are going to be the best indicator to tell you how to line up your reticle with that trajectory. There are some natural indicators like trees or buildings, but they're not always perfectly vertical, so you can't really rely on them, although it does give you a pretty good idea. You'd be surprised how some visual indicators can play tricks on your mind to make you think that you're lined up with true vertical, but it's pretty impossible to tell. So the easiest way to do it is just getting a bubble level, whether that's electronic or a physical bubble or a little ceramic ball inside of a glass vial. Doesn't really matter which one you go with. That kind of is all preference and budget. I went with the flatline bubble level, the 35 millimeter for the Mark V, and I found this one to be really solid. It's very well built. And while I'm looking down the optic, I can see it out of my left eye in my peripheral vision. So it does give me a great indicator, but you can also save some money. I also use the Triton Gear bubble level that I got off Amazon for about 25 bucks. The flatline was a little more expensive. It was about 125 to 150, depending on which model you go with. But regardless, you're gonna need some sort of way to indicate which way is up and down. And that's where that adjustable cant on the bipod comes in. So these two pieces of gear, actually really all three of these pieces of gear really play together very nicely when they're used in conjunction with one another. The bag allows you for that stability and minute adjustments, and the cant in your bipod allows you to adjust for the indicator that you're using to tell you which way is up and down. So this bipod, the SLM, has a knob originally. I've switched it out for a lever to make it a little bit easier to adjust, and then you just pull it left or right to loosen it and tighten it. But if I loosen it, I can change how my rifle is oriented with respect to up and down. And in contrast, I have the regular Harris bipod. It does not have cant adjustment. And with this Triton bubble level on the back here, even though I can tell that I'm not level, I can't really make adjustments with this bipod. So often I have to take this bipod off and then manually adjust my rifle and then hold it in place just to get a level shooting platform. So putting these two models next to each other really kind of tells you how important it is to have that cant. Ultimately, using a bipod with cant, a bubble level, and a shooting bag, you cannot go wrong. And I believe those three are the absolute bare essentials to get started on precision rifle. All right, as a bonus piece of gear, I would say if you have all of these figured out, your rifle's set up, you got a great reliable optic and consistent ammo, you got your bag, bipod, and level, I would say the next purchase you should make would be a chronograph. The reason why that's so important is because you really want to be able to build a solid, reliable, and accurate set of data for your rifle. The way you're going to do that is by measuring the speed of the rounds that come out of your barrel. Every rifle has a different barrel length, different gas system, and even from rifle to rifle, ammo is going to perform a lot differently. So you're going to need to be able to measure how quickly that round is coming out the barrel, because ultimately that's going to tell you how far that round is going to travel with supersonic speed and how much energy it's going to deliver. So chronograph is definitely going to be super, super important. You can do without it, especially with some of this these AI apps out there nowadays, and a lot of ballistic calculators will actually calculate your muzzle velocity based on the drop that you tell it at a certain distance. So for example, if you zero this to 100 yards and then you take it out to 400 or 500 yards and you're hitting targets at 2.5 mils, if you tell the ballistic calculator, hey, I'm zeroed at 100 yards, I have this optic height, and I'm using 2.5 mils to hit 400 yards, it'll actually be able to figure out what your muzzle velocity is as long as you put in all the other information, like the atmospherics and stuff like that. So these apps are really smart. AI is super helpful too, ChatGPT and Grok. You can really do without a chronograph, but there is no substitute for hard data. So I would say after all of this is set up, your next purchase should be a chrono, but they do run pretty expensive. The Garmin Zero runs about $500–600, and then I think there's an Athlon Optics one that runs a little bit cheaper than that, but they are super expensive. So your bare essentials are only gonna run you about $100 to $150 a piece. Very low barriers of entry, but your chrono is gonna be the first piece of gear that I would say is definitely going up there in price. So make sure you really know what you're doing and you understand how to collect that dope, how to use that chrono effectively. And then really once you have the data on all of your different rifles with all of your different loads that you're using, you kind of don't really need a chronograph again until something changes. Whether that's drastic atmospherics, like you're going to a very cold place and you zeroed it in a hot place, or you change the barrel or you change something about your setup, then you're gonna need a chrono again. But If you're kind of always shooting in the same environment or a similar environment and your rifle setup stays the same, ammo stays the same, the chronos are really only going to provide you very small differences in muzzle velocity. So after you have your data, I write it down on this 100 concepts dope sticker that I put on my stock, just so I have a very solid base set of data. And yes, these could change, like I said, but to start with my average 65 degrees Fahrenheit, everything's set up exactly like this is my dope. So if all else fails, I know what my bullet drop is at each distance out to about 800 yards. So if you're gonna go with a chronograph, it's definitely a good quality of life purchase. It just kind of makes this entire process of having a complete rifle setup just really easy, but it absolutely is not 100% necessary. And honestly, if you go to a lot of precision rifle courses, the instructors are gonna have a chronograph. So if you really wanna know your muzzle velocity, you can either borrow a friend's or just borrow theirs, and they're gonna be able to help you out. Getting into the nice to haves. This category is kind of a group of gear that the good professional long range precision rifle shooters are all gonna have, because they're at that point where their performance is outdoing the capabilities that that set of gear can provide them. So they're at that point where they need enablers that are gonna make them faster, more accurate, more precise, more consistent, all of that. So this set of gear is gonna be geared towards people who kind of already have all that figured out, and they want that next level set of things to enable them to do their job better. First and foremost is gonna be a laser rangefinder. Again, the laser rangefinder is not gonna be entirely necessary, because using your mill-based reticle and a little bit of math, if you have a known sized target like a C-zone or an 8-inch piece of steel or something like that, or even a deer or a person, you can kind of estimate the distance based on how many mils that target is inside of your reticle. There's a math formula to do that. I'll put it up on the screen, but it's super easy once you figure it out, and you kind of don't really need a precise way of getting that range, because once you're within 0.1 to 0.3 mils of your hold, you just send around, make corrections, because ultimately the first effective round on the target wins the gunfight. It doesn't have to be first round impact and precisely where you want it to be, but just the first effective round is gonna win the gunfight. So, in a practical sense, that's what's more important. But if you want a no-fail solution, you're in a match and you need that first round impact, you need to be precise and accurate, I would highly recommend a laser rangefinder, because it's gonna give you those accurate ranges and precise bullet drops to then dial into your optic or hold at distance and then send around. So laser rangefinder I have is actually not very good quality because I don't use it that much. Like I said, there are other ways to find the range on things, whether that's doing a little bit of math or using the Black Hills Design Range R card. There are just a bunch of other ways to get distance. But this is the Vortex, I don't even remember what model it is, but it's one of their basic lines of rangefinders. I think it was about 200 bucks. And it has either a 4X or a 5X zoom on it. Nothing super fancy, but the tricky thing with laser rangefinders is that you definitely need a magnification level that gives you both observation and kind of detail, because when it comes to 500-600 yards out, I had a ton of trouble even seeing a C-zoned size target with this thing because I just didn't have enough magnification. So my recommendation would be at least half the magnification of your optic needs to be what your laser rangefinder has. So for this one, if I'm shooting out to 600 yards with this, I typically would want something that has about 10x just to get a little bit more detail, a little bit more observation. The other thing with laser rangefinders is, with some experimentation, you need to figure out where on the reticle of that laser rangefinder it actually measures the distance from. So for this one, it has kind of a crosshair with a circle in the middle. The laser that it fires to measure distance is not going to be exactly in the center of that reticle. You need to kind of figure out where on that reticle it's measuring distance from, so that when you go out to 500, 600, 700 yards, you know where to put that reticle in order to get a reliable return, especially when you have targets with a backdrop or even some sort of foreground like a hill or a rock or something. You don't want to get a false return on something that's either too far or too close, because then it's going to trick you into thinking you know the distance of that target when you're actually measuring something completely different. So in order to get that, you're going to stand underneath a telephone pole, going to look up towards the telephone wires, look through your laser rangefinder, and either step to the left or step to the right underneath that wire until you get a return from the telephone wire passing over your head. Once you do that a couple times consistently, you're gonna be able to tell where on that reticle it's actually getting a return from. So for me, I kind of get one a little bit up and to the right. So I know when I point my laser rangefinder reticle at my target, I kind of need to use the upper right-hand corner of it in order to get an accurate return. So there are some caveats to laser rangefinders, and there are much, much better quality ones out there than the one that I have here. And some of them even have applied ballistics built into it. So as soon as you take a measurement on your range, it immediately provides you a drop solution for your optic, and then you just send around using that. So definitely not the best option right here, but it's what I have for now. It does the trick, and it gets the point across. So to go along with that, unless you're buying a laser rangefinder, you know, several $1,000s worth with applied ballistics, you're gonna need a ballistic calculator. And there are tons of options out there nowadays. I even mentioned you could use ChatGPT or Grok to give you those ballistic solutions. But the solutions that I use, the first, a free one, and then second, a paid one. The free one that I use is GeoBallistics. And what I really like about GeoBallistics is it uses maps. So you can actually zoom in on your location and figure out, okay, where's that target in relation to me? You get an azimuth, you get a height, or you get an altitude on it. And then you can kind of figure out what my hold is based on that. And you can pre-plan all these targets in there, put your entire rifle profile into this app, and it'll give you really good solutions. Some laser rangefinders also feed directly into this app. So you can have them Bluetooth connected. You range using your laser rangefinder. It provides you a solution in GeoBallistics, and then you use that to take a shot. So love GeoBallistics. It's free. I think there's a paid version of it. Not necessary at all. I've just been using the free version, and it works really well. Paid version. So I use applied ballistics on my Garmin watch, and that comes with the AB Synapse app on my phone. AB Quantum is the updated version, but AB Quantum combined with a Garmin Tactics line, I think it's the Delta and up, like the 7 and 8, but the Tactics line watches all have a applied ballistics option, and this is a built-in ballistics calculator. So I can put all of my rifle dope into my AB Quantum app and get my range card, my target card, put in all my environmentals. I can even put in different MV temp solutions, so muzzle velocity compared to temperature, ambient temperature, and then it builds a average muzzle velocity with a bunch of different firing solutions. Then you take it out to range, let's say 400 or 500 yards, you true it, which means you're checking that the solution it provides you at 400 to 500 yards is actually accurate. And once you tell it, okay, I used 2.5 mils at 400 yards, it'll correct all of your data for you, and then it'll spit it out on your watch. What I really like about this solution is that it's right here on my wrist. So as I'm firing, I have my support hand under my stock. I can just look down and see a range card, a target card, or whatever it is I'm using right on my watch, and I can make changes to it. I can change my profile, I can change my optic height, anything about it, and it spits it out right here. So what's great about ballistic calculators is there's no guesswork. As long as you've put in correct environmentals, your correct rifle profile with your muzzle velocity that you obtained from your chronograph, it's gonna spit out really good, really accurate within 0.1 to 0.2 mils of drop, so that you can get accurate and repeatable firing solutions at distance. The reason why this is on a nice to have list is because one, they're expensive. So this AB Quantum with applied ballistics on my watch, I think was about $150 for the license. And it's the light version too. So I don't even get solutions past $850. If you want that, you got to pay even more. And the watch itself, super expensive. Kestrels are really expensive, but they do provide environmental data. They read the wind. So there's a bunch of benefits to them, but they are just on a new budget level. So if you have everything else, you got the bag, the rifle, the optic, bipod, level, everything. Next purchase would be a ballistic calculator. Again, you do not need this at all. You can use shooterscalculator.com, get the same printout. You can literally physically print it out and bring it with you, or you can take a screenshot of your table, your drop table, put that on your rifle somehow, tape it on your stock, whatever you need to do. It's just not necessary to have a super expensive ballistics calculator with you at all times. Again, if you're in the professional sense and you're shooting matches, or your life depends on you making that first shot, 100% use a chronograph, use your ballistic calculator, get a solution that's gonna get you first round impacts. But if you're a casual precision rifle shooter, they're not necessary at all. There are a bunch of free ways you can get around it, whether it's geoballistics or shooterscalculator.com. Figure out a way to get the dope that you need, write it on a 100 Concepts dope sticker, or print it out, tape it onto your stock, put it on that cool QB forearm sleeve, and then just bring that with you. Once you have your dope data printed out, that's kind of all you really need, unless anything drastically changes about your setup or the environment. The dope is going to be pretty spot on. It may fluctuate 0.1, 0.2 mils up and down, but it's at least going to get you close, and then you can make a corrective shot after that and get rounds on target. This gear is all nice to have because it allows you to do your homework on your rifle ahead of time and show up to the fight prepared with a well-rounded set of data, knowing your holds, knowing your optic, and being familiar with how your ammo performs. And that's super important because it just gives you that leg up on a regular range day, a competition, or an actual gunfight because you're familiar with how your entire system works. However, if you don't have this nice to have gear, there are a bunch of tips and techniques that you can employ at the range, whether you're competing or you're actually shooting in a gunfight, and it allows you to kind of circumvent all of the specific data that you may have on your rifle with just really quick solutions to get rounds on target as quickly as possible. Again, first effective round wins the gunfight. So aside from all this fancy gear and equipment that we can use to enable ourselves to shoot more consistently and more accurately at distance, there are a couple tips and tricks to the trade that I want to cover that are just going to be good knowledge to help advance your skills and abilities, and that when you're going to actually practice this stuff and use your equipment, you can try some of this out and realize that it's actually a little bit easier than it may seem, and it gets even better with practice. So the first concept I want to go over is maximum point blank range. Essentially, this is like shooting through a tube, right?
And it would be, you wouldn't want to put it into a tube.
So maximum point blank range is going to be the furthest distance out to the target at which a bullet will stay within a predetermined vertical tolerance of your point of aim. So let's say our point of aim is this star right here on this target that I've marked in the middle of an A zone. The predetermined vertical tolerance are these solid white lines above that dashed line point of aim. And so we're gonna want our round to stay throughout its arc within this predetermined vertical tolerance so that no matter where we aim in that A zone, it's going to hit within those solid white lines. And now the round could impact anywhere within that upper and lower limit of the vertical tolerance, but it gives us a distance. So let's say this distance out to this target is 300 yards. That would mean our maximum point blank range is 300 yards because after 300 yards, it's going to fall below that predetermined vertical tolerance. In order to get a longer maximum point blank range, you're gonna need to use a faster round so that travels flatter through space. However, most 5.56 rounds, whether it's 55 grain, 77 grain, they're gonna fall somewhere in the 300 to 400 yards for maximum point blank range. So a rule of thumb you can use is just dial up by 1 mil, or typically you're gonna hold 1 mil for 300 yards and 2 mils for 400 yards. This rule of thumb is very useful for a lot of us practical long-range precision rifle shooters. So the next concept I want to talk about is speed drop factor, and this is going to be a super quick and easy way to figure out, just using a little bit of mental math, what your rough drop is going to be at certain distances, really within 0 to about 500, but probably more like 400 yards, because after that it kind of falls apart with the ballistics of 5.56. So this is going to be a great way to just quickly on the spot figure out, all right, if I'm shooting something out at 250 yards, what's my hold? Or if I'm at 450, what's my hold? So let's talk about exactly what this is. Speed drop factor is essentially determined by calculating the difference between the range divided by 100 and the corresponding drop data in mils at various distances. So right here I have 500 yards divided by 100 is 5. Subtract the drop that you're gonna use, which is roughly 3.5 for most people, you're gonna get 1.5. And the rule of thumb for most 55 grains is that you're gonna get a speed drop factor of about 2. And then for most 77 grains, you're gonna get a speed drop factor of about 1.5. So how this works in practicality, if my speed drop factor is about 1.5, this is how my dope is gonna look. And I've done two different tables here. I'm gonna focus it on there so you can see. Two different tables here. One based solely on speed drop factor, the hold that I calculated, and then one based on the actual hold from my Applied Ballistics app. Pulled it straight from my range table. So at a range of 0 and 100, we're kind of negating that because it's gonna be based on your height over bore, and then also at 100 yards, it's gonna be my 0, so it's 0. But at 200 yards, all the way out to about 450, you're gonna see very consistent actual holds and speed drop factor holds. So again, how you calculate this? 200 divided by 100 is 2, subtract your 1.5 and you get 0.5. I'm using the 77 grain AAC OTMs, so my actual hold for that is gonna be 0.5. Again with 300. 300 divided by 100 is 3, subtract 1.5, you get 1.5. So based on my speed drop factor hold, I get 1.5. My actual hold was actually 1.4. That could just be based on the atmospherics that I have plugged into it for today, but very, very close, gets me within 0.1 mil. And at 300 yards, 0.1 mils is only 0.9 inches. So not that much when you think about it. Actually 0.9, about 1 inch difference. So 1.5 to 1.4 at 300, pretty negligible. Gets me very, very close. 400 yards, again, 400 divided by 100, subtract 1.5, you get 2.5. The actual hold is 2.5. And then as you can see here, it starts to kind of fall apart at 500 yards. It should be, based on speed drop factor, it should be 3.5, but my actual hold based on my dope is 3.8. So past 500 yards is typically where you're gonna wanna start to use your actual dope because you're gonna get to a lot smaller and harder to hit targets. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to predict using this method. But anywhere from 450, 400 and in, it's a very easy way. So just really quick, using 250, 2.5 minus 1.5, my hold should be somewhere around 1 mil. And I haven't even looked at my dope. So let's go ahead and open that up and check. My dope for 250 is 0.9. So I'm super close. I'm within 0.1 mils. And at 250 yards, 0.1 mils is practically nothing. So speed drop factor is a really super quick, down and dirty way to just get really close answers. And like I said before, what wins the gunfight is going to be the first effective round on target. So if you're trying to be quick and you're trying to hit what you're aiming at, which is most likely going to be some sort of 6-inch, 8-inch, or A-zone sized steel target, then this is going to be a really easy way to do it. You don't even need your ballistic calculator. You don't need to reference any dope. You just do the quick math in your head based on whatever your 55 or 77 grain is doing. So these are two super easy ways, speed drop factor and maximum point blank range, to just quickly get on target and get rounds down range. All right, so in the end, guys, what really matters when you're getting into long range precision rifle, or really just accurately shooting the rifle that you have, is training. So make sure you're signing up for courses in your local area and you're learning from professionals who have been there and done that, and they've put all of this knowledge and all this gear into practice and into use. They can pass that knowledge on to you so that you can figure out what setup works for you. Nothing that I've said is gospel. You don't have to buy a shooting bag. You don't have to buy a level or a bipod. These are just the things that I prioritize when I'm setting up a precision rifle complete setup. And honestly, when it comes down to it, the best rifle setup is the one you have. So really just get out there, train, know your rifle, and know where your skills hit their limits so you can go train through those limits and get even better. Once you've outperformed your own setup, that's the time to upgrade, buy new equipment such as the bag, the bipod, the level, ballistic calculator, chrono, all that fancy stuff. That's where all that's gonna come in. But in the end, make sure you're just getting out there, training, attending those courses. All right, guys, with that, that's gonna do it for this video. So if you've been watching this the entire time, all the way up until this point, then you are the people keeping this channel going. And it goes a lot further than you think. If you'd like, comment, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And since I just had my first kid, I am a new father. I'm gonna give some dad advice. None of this really matters in the grand scheme of things. All these fancy rifles, gear, equipment, whatever. It's fun and it's very important to keep your family safe, but what really matters is leaving an impact and having a positive influence on your children. So I'm gonna go spend time with my family, but thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Catch you in the next one. The rifle just does the